Narcissistic abuse doesn't simply cause PTSD. Rather, it causes something more complicated, complex, and chronic in nature, which is called or named as CPTSD or Complex Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder or complex post-traumatic stress response is an advanced form of PTSD. And the main difference between the two is the number of events, the number of traumatic events that a person has been exposed to. Fundamentally, in post-traumatic stress disorder, a person is exposed to only one event, one traumatic event, while as in complex post-traumatic stress disorder, a person is exposed to a number of events, a number of different events which have the same theme over a time period that can be years or months or hours. Hi, I am Danish, a narcissistic abuse recovery professional, and today I'll be talking about the aftermath of narcissistic abuse. I'll be talking about how it is different than just having post-traumatic stress disorder and why it needs strategic approach when we talk about healing and recovery, and why it needs more time and expertise as you heal from it. The nature of narcissistic abuse is such that it lasts for years. The experiences may be different, but the experiences are traumatic. They are shocking. They are spirit-breaking, soul-crushing, and personality-damaging and personality-altering. It is not only physical abuse that traumatizes a person, but rather the continuous betrayal, the continuous manipulation, the shocks in form of the alterations in the personality of the narcissist, from being a sweet person, a caring person, and turning into someone who is bitter, who is hollow and empty like a robot. All these experiences last for years. For some people, yet for other people, they last for months. No matter what the time period is, for the people who experience narcissistic abuse, it is never only one event. Rather, it is a series of events that starts from a narcissistic person being very loving and caring, and then ends with seeing a narcissist being a manipulator, a gaslighter, someone who is hollow and empty inside and has nothing to offer than just darkness. The transition from the first to the last stage is filled with trauma, filled with experiences that break a person slowly, subtly, yet deeply. The experiences that you go through in a narcissistic relationship change you, change your emotions, change how you regulate your emotions, change how you think, change how you feel yourself, your body, change how you connect with God, change how you see the world, how you see yourself, and how you see others. Which means the impact of narcissistic abuse is very deep and it touches you at the cellular level. And because of all of these occurrences, there are alterations that happen in you as a person in different aspects of your life. For example, your emotions are heavily dysregulated. You oscillate between extremes of the emotions. Either you completely dissociate or you feel too much. Your approach or your perception about fundamental relationships or relationships where trust is needed changes. You either trust too much and attach with the person completely, grab onto them, or you just do not give a damn about the person. You completely detach. It's like an oscillation of a pendulum from the extremes, and it looks quite similar to a bipolar pattern. Your perception about the abuser changes, which means you are trauma bonded with them, or you develop something called Stockholm syndrome, where you do not see or where you do not have the clarity of who the abuser is for real. Rather, those good times and what the narcissist or the abuser has done for you, even if it is insignificant, you expand them and make them bigger unconsciously, and then state them as the reason for you to stay, or to say that perhaps it wasn't that bad, perhaps it is me, perhaps that, perhaps this. Your cognition is changed. Your thinking patterns are almost catastrophic automatically. You come to conclusions easily. You start catastrophizing easily. You start coming to, believing that worst thing is going to happen, even though it is very clear that things are not going in that direction. All of these changes run deep to the core of your psyche. And all of the symptoms or the changes are similar. What you experience if you have a simple post-traumatic stress disorder. In post-traumatic stress disorder, there are alterations that happen. There are changes that happen in your perceptions. However, they do not run this deep. They do not change you at a cellular level. And it's only one experience that you have to deal with. It's only about the flashbacks, about only one memory, one experience, one thing. For example, an accident. For example, watching someone die. For example, being humiliated in front of many people. It is only one experience and very simple to deal with. However, when you talk about continuous and chronic abuse, there are hundreds of experiences, there are hundreds of blows to your character that are very intrusive and traumatic, powerful enough to assassinate you internally, that are very powerful to cause the harm that goes beyond just surface level symptoms of not being able to regulate the emotions and not being able to sleep. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder, even though it doesn't have a way of diagnosis in DSM-5 still, DSM stands for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. This is a go-to manual for people involved in mental health field. It's like a Bible for them and a reference where everything about the mental disorders and their diagnosis has been written. And even when it comes to complex post-traumatic stress and the advancement in how it manifests in a person, narcissistic abuse, in my understanding, comes into or can be categorized into a special category of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Because normally the symptoms or the behavioral patterns or the manifestations in a narcissistic abuse survivor are very different or very exclusive when we talk in the context of narcissistic abuse only and relate it with complex post-traumatic stress. Therefore, the approach has to be very different. The approach to treating complex post-traumatic stress or healing from it. It has to be very strategic, based on understanding of what is going on with the person who is experiencing it, based on how the trauma is manifesting exactly. One approach fits all doesn't work here. The approach has to be based on the individual, which means the healing journey of another person doesn't necessarily look like yours, which means they are going to have different experiences and different breakthroughs when it comes to your healing journey. Given the complexity of the situation here, a different kind of expertise, understanding and training is needed when it comes to trauma professionals, when it comes to people who help others to overcome the traumatic experiences. Rather than just focusing on one method or one technique, for example, only EMDR or only this and that, a set of techniques and tools is needed for dealing with different aspects of the trauma. One cannot claim to have one tool and then be able to handle all the nuances of the complex trauma, because as the name suggests, it is complex. Therefore, the tools have to be complicated and rather sophisticated when it comes to their applicability. And also when it comes to time, complex post-traumatic stress needs more time because there is a lot to deal with. It's not just one experience that you are talking about here. Rather, it is a set of experiences, set of traumatic occurrences that a person has been through. I hope you were able to understand how the aftermath of narcissistic abuse is different than just having a simple PTSD, and how it needs more help, more efforts when it comes to healing from it. I will talk with you again. Till then, let the healing begin.